Hello, my name's Peter Taylor and I was the lead consultant for the project to develop the National Maritime Oil and Hazardous Noxious Substances Spill Contingency Plan for Ireland. This short presentation is going to explain some of the key outcomes from this project, particularly focusing on how they have implications for on-call officers within the Coast Guard. The project had three main parts. First part was an analysis of the current state of preparedness and the national plan within Ireland and a gap analysis of where there may be areas for improvement and changes. Second part was looking at existing risk assessments that have been carried out just to ensure that looking forward that the planning framework was aligned to and met with the potential risks of oil or hazardous noxious substances pollution around the coast of Ireland. And the third part, which was the key deliverables, was the operational documentation, a new revised national plan supported by a series of standard operating procedures that provide some detail underneath the main policy document of the plan. Ireland has committed to various obligations under international agreements of the IMO, the EU, and also the Bonn Agreement, which is a regional agreement for the North Sea and its approaches on cooperation in case of maritime pollution. And those are reflected into a variety of Irish statutes and law, including the Sea Pollution Acts, but also various other instruments that are on the screen there. Also it's important to establish an integration between maritime emergency framework and the government-wide strategic emergency management framework, including the major emergencies management, the MEM system, which is the agreement between the principal response agencies. So that's the local authorities, the guards, the health service, and the Coast Guard, to coordinate and support each other in case of a major emergency. The new national plan, what's its purpose? It meets the obligations of these international treaties to which Ireland is a party. The OPRC Convention is an IMO convention. It's the Oil Pollution Preparedness, Response and Cooperation Convention, and that requires that Ireland develops a national plan for oil pollution. There is also another IMO convention called the OPRC HNS, the Hazardous Noxious Substances Protocol, that mirrors OPRC for HNS, for hazardous noxious substances. Ireland is not currently or not yet a party to that protocol, but in fact in the Sea Pollution Act it has committed to extend the national plan to address HNS. So in fact, in practical terms, there is an obligation and a commitment under Irish law to have a national plan covering both oil and hazardous noxious substances. And the plan itself then, it establishes a framework for a strategic approach to coordination of maritime pollution, preparedness and response. And as I was saying further in this presentation, that also it integrates with the overall maritime casualty response and capability. What's new in the revised plan? Well, there's clear content, a short introductory piece covering the legal framework, but then description of the overall preparedness and operational frameworks with much of the operational detail incorporated into the SOPs. There's full alignment to the incident command system and guidance also on the contingency planning requirements for those organisations or entities that must produce their own plans. That includes local authorities, ports and harbours authorities, and the private sector such as the offshore industry or facilities that handle oil or HNS and have the risk of pollution from those operations. There's also the formation of a new committee which is charged with the ensuring and overseeing the implementation of the national plan. Supported by or underneath that committee is a broader forum, which is a consultative forum, which will include a broader stakeholder base, including the private sector, the offshore industry, for example, to ensure that any information or decisions coming out of the committee can be shared amongst the wider stakeholder group. The document itself, it's quite a high-level document. It's modelled on New Zealand's approach, actually. New Zealand has some similarities to Ireland in terms of its large sea area, similar population sizes, etc. So, and the New Zealand approach had been developed over a number of years and is a good working model on which to base the framework for Ireland. It's important to emphasise that the pollution preparedness and response integrates with the current Coast Guard structure, so it's a holistic approach, so that preparedness response to pollution is seen as fully integrated and is fully integrated with those other elements of potential elements anyway of a marine casualty. The standard operating procedures provide the detail and further guidance beneath the overall policy document. And it is important to ensure the whole government response is properly coordinated in the case of marine pollution. This diagram is attempting to show the linkages between the National Spill Contingency Plan on the bottom right side, how that links up on the right side into overall maritime response. So down here we have the National Framework for Pollution, which is the new national plan and its associated supporting documents. That links into the overall casualty preparedness and response, search and rescue, salvage, etc. But then that important linkage across into broader emergency management of the whole government response. So there will be, in the case of a major incident, coordination between the Coast Guard and the Department of Transport into other departments of government, for support and information, communication to the community, linkages to the other principal response agencies, including the local authorities, if there's, particularly of course, if there's a threat of pollution coming onto the shoreline. So making sure that all those linkages are in place, that the system that the Coast Guard has, particularly based on ICS, the Incident Command System, properly merges into and can integrate with the systems that are used in the broader emergency management sphere. The Incident Command System is being adopted by the Coast Guard across its operations, so not just for pollution response, but also for those other elements of a marine casualty. There is going to be a programme of training and exercising to further embed this organisation and approach into the Coast Guard. It will be the basis of the organisation and structure and function of the Maritime Response Team. And any supporting government bodies, other departments that will be providing expertise and staff and personnel into the Coast Guard's overall response, they will be expected to integrate into this system. So that will have a requirement for not just training and exercising internal to the Coast Guard, but also to ensure that the people who may be coming in to support that have awareness of ICS, can work with it, and that this system can integrate with the broader emergency management framework of government. The contents page for the new national plan is on the screen here, mainly to just emphasise that it is a relatively short document, in total 34 pages. So it's not a heavy read. It is an overview document, a policy document, with some of the detail required at the operational level and the guidance for contingency planning for other entities incorporated into the SOPs. Here are the 6 SOPs that support the plan. There are 3 probably that are of particular interest to the on-call duty officers. Numbers 1, 2 and 6 as they're currently numbered. The initial one, number 1, about assessing notification, then about the establishment of the Incident Command System in the MER, and also the guidance on places of refuge is included into the national system through an SOP. The first SOP is the assessment notification. It has a standard pollution reporting form so that that details the type of information that would be requested to enable a proper assessment of a pollution incident to be made, and then that to inform a suitable response. The assessment process is described, how that works and how that is internally to the Coast Guard, how that is dealt with. The SOP contains a description and a diagram, as you see on the screen here, that shows the routes whereby reporting may come into the Coast Guard, and then the process that the Coast Guard will use to verify, assess, and then make decisions on level of response and mobilisation of resources or standing up of the maritime response team. Of course, there's a slightly different process depending whether it's office hours or outside office hours, but it needs to have this clear process of assessment, verification, and decision making. There is a description of how the incident command system will be established and operates. That's quite a detailed document in the sense that it's 28 pages, but there are actually a number of graphics included in this document. So again, it's not too heavy on text, and this will be supported by the training and exercising program that's part of the implementation of this plan and of these standard operating procedures. So this describes the structure, the processes that sit underneath that title of ICS. The POR standard operating procedure reflects the European Union and IMO published guidelines. Although it's accepted that there are revised IMO guidelines in the pipeline near finalisation and agreement within IMO, although much of the amendments included in these revisions are based on the EU approach of how neighbouring countries will cooperate in case of a place of refuge issue arising. So it's not anticipated that there will be a need for major changes to this new SOP when the IMO guidelines are approved, probably in 2020. So to close out on this short introduction to the new framework, there is going to be a national committee. The committee is to ensure that the plan is implemented by meeting on at least an annual basis, led by the Coast Guard, but also involving the other arms of government to ensure that not only does Ireland have a framework on paper that is robust and suitable, but also that that framework is being properly implemented.